Judge Roy's Scream is currently the only operating wooden roller coaster at Six Flags Over Texas in Arlington. This William Cobb wood coaster has an odd location that leaves the main boundaries of the park and travels adjacent to a nearby road. But does it still hold its own in Six Flags Over Texas's deep coaster lineup? I will discuss the ride's history and review the ride experience of Judge Roy's Scream. Judge Roy's Scream opened in 1980, designed by Don Rosser and William Cobb. This was the first of two wooden roller coasters that would ever be built at Six Flags Over Texas. The second would be Texas Giant in 1990, the monstrous Din wood coaster that would open as the world's tallest wooden coaster. While that coaster was very well received, claiming the top spot in Amusement Today's Golden Ticket Awards as the world's best wooden coaster several times, the ride's aggressive layout tore itself apart, which is why it was converted into the new Texas Giant in 2011, which was the first Rocky Mountain construction Iron Horse hybrid coaster. That left Judge Roy's Scream again as the park's only wood coaster. Judge Roy's Scream is named after Judge Roy Bean, a Texan justice of the peace and saloon keeper. According to legend, Bean held court in his saloon, and he gained a reputation as a hanging judge, even though he only sentenced 2 people to the gallows. The coaster has absolutely no theming, outside of a sheriff badge themed sign, and a comically blunt sign atop the lift that states "Appeal Denied." I hinted at it earlier, but Judge Roy's Scream has an odd location. This makes it incredibly difficult to find. The ride's entrance can only be accessed via a tunnel that goes underneath the roadway into the park. The coaster then travels outside the park's boundaries. The ride has a basic out and back layout alongside Six Flags Drive and a picturesque pond. The best views of the coaster can be seen in the surrounding hotels and as you're driving in. And I like how this coaster has a classic white paint scheme, like a lot of older wooden coasters. This isolated location often makes Judge Roy's Scream a walk-on. I have never had to wait for this coaster in any of my visits to Six Flags Over Texas. The park probably could get away with running just one train in this coaster, but to their credit, they have always run 2 trains in this coaster, at least when I've visited. And for the 1994 season, the park actually ran a train backwards to try to boost the ride's popularity. This gimmick was only supposed to run in the spring, but it was maintained for the entire season based on guest feedback. The trains were flipped forwards again in 1995 and have remained in that orientation going forwards. And I'm surprised the backwards trains never returned due to how well received this version was. Each train consists of 4 3-bench PTC cars, seating up to 24 riders. And each rider gets their own individual lap bar. As with any coaster running PTC trains, I recommend holding onto the lap bar during the ride, or else you run the risk of getting stapled, especially since this coaster can be quite bumpy. Up front, Judge Roy's Scream is tolerable. It's a bit shaky, but very rideable. In wheel seats, and especially in the back car, the coaster is considerably bumpier. Most of the bumps occur in the ride's valleys, as you'd expect. I still think the back is rideable, and it helps this coaster has barely any turns. The superior smoothness is why I prefer to ride this coaster in the front row. Once dispatched, Judge Roy's Scream begins with a slow U-turn and a 71-foot or 22-meter tall lift. The coaster begins with a straight 65-foot or 20-meter drop. This drop delivers a weak pop of airtime in the back car, and since you bank to the left of the bottom, you also get a weak jolt of laterals. If you're familiar with William Cobb Woodies, you know he loves to have awkwardly tall hills. Judge Roy's Scream's second hill looked exactly like one of those. The train takes forever to clear this hill. For that reason, I'm shocked it gives airtime. And it's good airtime too. Up front, it gives a very strong and abrupt pop of airtime. In the back, the resulting drop delivers 2 separate and abrupt pops of airtime. The third and fourth hills are elongated bunny hills. The third delivers some bouncy airtime up front, but the fourth delivers no airtime for anyone despite the speed you traverse it. You then rise up into the far turnaround, again getting no airtime. And the far turn is taken so slowly you don't get any laterals either. After a weak drop off the turnaround, the next hill delivers another dose of weak bouncy airtime for front car riders. Judge Roy's Scream then meekly crawls over 2 additional bunny hills, hugging the outward leg, giving no airtime. At this point, the ride seems over. You are crawling. But then you drop underneath the supports of the lift hill and are treated by one of the most awkward looking speed hills ever. This element looks comically small, and it delivers a mighty pop of ejector airtime for those in the front car. Riders further back in the train also get an ejector pop, but it is a bit weaker than you get in the front car. This element delivers great airtime for sure, but is extra sweet because of how surprising it is. You then hop up into the brake run, ending the 2,670 foot or 810 meter long coaster. The biggest issue with Judge Roy's Scream, outside of the shakiness in the wheel seats, is the pacing. This coaster has 2 great airtime hills, and then a lot of dull points. So what would I rate Judge Roy's Scream? I would give this coaster a 5 out of 10. This wood coaster's second hill and speed hill are great. The airtime they deliver stand out like Dan Marino and the Dolphins. Everything around Dan Marino and these 2 elements is a dud. The layout is uninspired. The other hills are weak, and the coaster is often shaky if you aren't in the first 2 rows. That being said, I do always ride Judge Roy's Scream in my visits to Over Texas because of those 2 aforementioned airtime moments. They save this coaster. And one note for smaller riders, the height restriction on Judge Roy's Scream is a surprisingly low 42 inches, which is great for those young kids that haven't quite hit the magical 48-inch mark that you need to be to ride most wood coasters and major coasters at parks. So those are my thoughts on Judge Roy's Scream, the 40-plus-year-old wood coaster at Six Flags Over Texas. Have you been on this coaster? What are your thoughts about the experience? I would love to hear what you think down in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, I'd appreciate if you gave it a like and you considered subscribing, because there'll be a lot more roller coaster and music park videos here at Canopy Coaster. Thanks for watching.